Good morning, friends and business leaders. Hello, and welcome to today's webinar Business Process Improvement in Healthcare Selecting the Right Partner. It gives me great pleasure to extend to you all a very warm welcome on behalf of the event organizers 21st Century Informatics. My name is Dr. Neha Shah, your host. It is an opportune time to renew contacts and discuss problems of mutual interest with delegates from over the globe. Before we start, let's take a moment to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with the webinar control panel. First, you should have a control panel on the right side of your screen. You may minimize this panel by clicking on the arrow button in the upper left corner. You may expand the panel by clicking the same button. Take a moment to practice. Second, you have the ability to submit questions using the question pane located near the bottom of the control panel. Throughout our presentation, we encourage you to interact with our speakers by typing in questions using the question pane. We will be answering questions after the end of the session in your mailbox. Let me take a privilege to introduce to our today's speaker, Mr. Rajiv Thakkar. Mr. Rajiv Thakkar has been an IIT IIM postgraduate. He is primarily responsible for business support, data analysis, and business process improvement in the area of his work in hospital management system and electronic medical record. He has been instrumental in providing solutions for hospital management information system and business process improvement for private and public sector hospitals and institutions for core areas of hospital management. He has been involved for the past over 32 years in the field of healthcare informatics, project management and business process improvement. Today's session is aimed at helping you select the right partner for business process improvement in healthcare. This session will help you select your partner, plan the expectations, and have a clear responsibility matrix. It would also help you implement the changes with your partner. So let's get started. Over to Mr. Rajiv Thakkar.
Thank you, Neha, for the introduction. Let's begin this webinar by asking some basic questions. Why do we need a partner? Assuming that we hire a partner, next question is, what is his role and what is your role in the business process improvement? We next examine what are the capabilities of the partner and the approach that he should be taking in the business process improvement process. Next, we look at the decision-making steps and implementing those decisions in your business. We look at reviews and improvement cycles. What is it that we need to do once we have completed the initial steps in the business process improvement cycle? And finally, we will look at the next steps. In our previous webinars, we have discussed various aspects of managing change. And these have included planning the change management project itself, using various tools and techniques to arrive at the best options, implementing the change, evaluating the results of the change, carrying out mid-course corrections whenever there are any situations when you come across results that are unexpected, taking corrective actions and preventive measures so that the course does not change from the planned course, and finally making the change permanent, and of course reviewing the change to to plan for the next cycle. Now, these are steps which we have identified in our previous webinars. Where does the partner fit into all this? Or is it something that you can do on your own? You don't need a partner to help carry out these changes. What would you think? Let me give you my perspective. So why do you need a partner? Typically, a partner, or you could call him a mentor, or you could call him a consultant or a retainer, by whatever name you like to call him, would typically have a large and diverse experience in business process improvement cycles. He would have handled something similar in different industries, in different areas altogether. He would have typically come across several issues that you need to tackle on a day-to-day basis in the business process improvement cycle. And this is something which helps. Experience certainly helps here. He would have the capability to effectively use the tools for business process management. And typically, these business process improvement tools include carrying out statistical analysis, planning projects, using tools to enable you to come out with solutions which are out of the box, to look at similar kind of situations that might have occurred at other places when the consultant was called in. And in general, he should be able to guide you at every step of the process in the business process management change. Project management is itself quite a task, and the consultant should be able to carry out all steps right from conceptualization to planning to detailing to helping in implementation and also carrying out a post audit on the various processes in the project management for the business process improvement. And he would be able to take an external view of your organization, of the business processes in your organization, look at them from the perspective of other kind of companies where similar situations might have occurred, and finally be able to provide you a solution that is appropriate for your kind of situation. I myself had the privilege of being associated with various kinds of organizations, manufacturing organizations, in equipment production, automobile manufacturers, cement manufacturers, fertilizer manufacturers, and so on. It was almost about 2 decades back that I had the first opportunity to look at a hospital management process and to look at how to carry out a business process change in a hospital. At that time, there were people who told me that this is different. It's a service industry. It's very different from how manufacturing industries work. You can't apply the same techniques, etc. In the first 1 month of my working with this hospital, the biggest surprise for everyone, including myself at that time, was that there was nothing which was different. The principles of business process improvement that had been applied effectively in each of the manufacturing organizations that I had worked with earlier were just equally applicable to the hospitals, to healthcare organizations. Of course, they needed to be implemented in a different manner, consistent with the nature of the business. But that did not mean that the business processes needed some complete radical rethinking. No, they didn't. That's where a consultant who has experience in multiple industries can even help you in hospital management processes and in helping you to improve your business processes in a direction which is appropriate. Very often, being too deeply involved in your hospital, being very closely associated with the business processes, can sometimes lead you to fall in love with them. So much so that you don't want to change them. That's where an external view helps, and it can make a dramatic difference. So what are the typical roles and responsibilities in business process improvement? Particularly, what is your role in the whole process? And what would be the role of the partner or the consultant, or by whatever name you call him? There are some aspects that you cannot outsource. There is no way that these decisions or these aspects of business process improvement can be handed over to someone else. First, ensuring availability of resources, manpower, space, funds, all this needs to be done by you. Nobody else can do this for you. It is necessary that you should be ensuring that the right persons are available at the right time to take decisions and to participate in various discussions regarding the business process improvement. On the other hand, what is it that the partner will do? Based on the discussions that have taken place and based on his own past experience and knowing fully well what are the things that work and what doesn't work, he will make business process change recommendations. Finally, taking a decision on those recommendations is entirely your call. Ensuring that decisions are made and made in time is not something which you can outsource to anyone. Once these decisions have been made, then of course the job of the partner or the consultant is to create the project plan and monitor it on a day-to-day basis and report to you if there are any reasons for making any changes. But as an outsider, he can at best carry out only a monitoring and reporting. He cannot be held responsible for project results. That's entirely your job. Of course, the partner will be able to help you in implementing the changes, to iron out any kind of problems that arise while the change is being implemented, to help you with some mid-course corrections during the process, of carrying out the changes. He is also responsible for training people for the new kinds of processes that are put in place. If it involves training at a basic level, either he or someone else might be involved. If it's training at a bigger level, maybe at the level of the managers or the supervisors, he may directly be involved as well. And there is another aspect which the consultant will help you with, and that is education. I make this subtle distinction between training and education. In training, the consultant's role is to impart a skill. For example, let's say there is some computerization activity which is required to be carried out. So he can guide you as to how to do some processes, to see how best you can utilize the system, and so on. But that is on the assumption that the user has completely understood, internalized, and accepted that this change is required. That's really where education comes in. To educate the user implies that you make a change in his attitude. Very often, we hear about users resisting change. Do they really resist change, or is it something else? Is it that they have a fear that by carrying out these changes, it's going to lead to bigger problems for them? Quite possible. That's where education comes in. And you need to change their attitude, the attitude towards change itself. In the process of carrying out changes, probably the biggest aspect is carrying out policy changes. And this is where the partner or the consultant can recommend changes to you. He cannot carry out changes. It's your business. He cannot change your policies. The policy changes have to be carried out by you. And they also need to be implemented by you. The consultant or partner can only help you to make those changes, to help you with getting users to understand the implications of all those changes, to train them, to educate them towards those changes. But making the changes in policies is certainly not an activity that can be carried out by someone else. So what are the capabilities of the partner that you should be looking at? Number one, the partner should not be somebody who is very closely involved with your business, for the very simple reason that the moment he is closely involved, he might have interests which are different from giving you advice which is in the best interest of the organization. Therefore, the partner must be able to provide you an objective and unbiased approach by which you can arrive at a good solution. He should be able to provide you an effective business process improvement, process control. That means the entire process of carrying out the business process improvement itself needs to be controlled in a certain manner. And he should be providing you the guidance to be able to carry out those changes. It is extremely important that the partner is completely ethical in the business relationship. There is absolutely no place for any kind of unethical behavior. And therefore, as much as we know what the partner should provide you and what he should do, what is it that he should never do? In any organization, no matter how small or how big, there will always be some internal politics. If the partner becomes a party to this internal politics, it is one of the biggest disasters that you can have in business process improvement. Very often, partners are people with a lot of experience, and you will find them being often addressed as sir so and so in the organizations, because they interact very closely with the top management of the organization. Sometimes people start equating them with a position in an organization which is close to the top. But this again is extremely counterproductive. There is a lot of filtered information which will flow through if the person is seen as somebody who is at a certain hierarchy in the organization. Very often, people in the lower rungs of the organization may not even interact with such a person. They might often refrain from giving him information. They may not give their unbiased opinion. They may not even tell him if there's something going wrong in the organization, because it is seen as something which is not necessarily in the interest of the organization. In any aspect of business process improvement, there will always be conflicts. Conflicts because the change is seen to impact the person, the department, the organization in a manner which is not necessarily understood in the same manner across the organization. This is where the consultant's role is crucial. It is important that he does not take sides in a conflict, but to look at it as effectively and as dispassionately as possible. He will finally have a view, but it will not be based or biased because of the conflict. In the process of making changes, there are often situations when technologies are discussed in great detail. Very often, each person has his own likes and dislikes. It's quite possible that the consultant or partner might also have some very specific reasons for preferring one technology or a vendor over another. It is also possible that he might have worked with one of those vendors earlier and therefore is close to that vendor. There might be sometimes reasons outside what is obvious for recommending a particular technology or a vendor. This is where the role of the consultant is extremely important. It needs to be clarified and put on the table as to the reasons why a particular vendor or a particular technology is being preferred over another. It is not proper on the part of the consultant to back a particular vendor. Certainly not. He might say that he has a preference, that given a choice he would prefer, but the decision is finally that of the hospital or the organization which is undergoing the business process change. Alternatives need to be very clearly identified, and the impact of choosing one over the other must also be very clearly documented. This is easier said than done, but at the same time, it's extremely important that it is done in a dispassionate manner. And lastly, remember, the partner does not run your business, or the consultant is not there to run your business. You have to run your business. It's your business. Very often, the job of the consultant is merely that of making recommendations and not even implementing them. It depends upon what kind of arrangement you have with the consultant or the partner. But certainly, it's your business and you should be running it the way you want it to run. Let's now look at a crucial aspect in the relationship between partners, yourself, and a business process improvement cycle. The decisions that you make are based on the recommendations made by the partner, very often also involving your own people who are actually working on the line. What decisions are taken finally depends upon your approach to what change you consider desirable. What is it that you think is possible? And what is it that you would like to see as the end result? Implementation of those decisions also must be done by people within the organization and is not a job to be outsourced. Very often one comes across people who offer to provide you the so-called turnkey solutions. Turnkey solutions can be provided where it is an equipment to be installed, or it is a small solution being provided. It cannot be carried out for something as large as a business process improvement. But one does come across people saying, oh, this particular job is being done by so and so consultant. He will make a change and he has agreed to show us a major transformation in the way our business runs. Believe me, he can't. The fact is that 80% of the problems are attributable to systems. Most of these systems are driven by policies which you have decided. And the impact of those policies on the systems is extremely large. So if you want to modify the system, you need to handle policies properly. It's not easy to do this. But at the same time, it's only your job to be able to do this. Having said that, there are still about 20% problems that are attributable to people. No, not everything happens because it's a wrong system. It is also because you have the wrong person, or where you have an approach of the person which is not correct, or there are some people who just wouldn't agree to a change. or will not adapt to the change or will procrastinate. All forms of procrastination or decision delaying, remember, is only at your cost, and nobody else bears the least of the cost of the business process not falling in line. Therefore, it's important that you improve systems first before you lay the blame at somebody else's doorstep, particularly specific persons in the organization. 80% of the time you will find that they are not the ones who are the cause of the problem, but sometimes they are in fact the people who are impacted by the problem. But remember, there are 20% situations when the people are the problem. That's where we come to an extremely important principle, that when people fail to change, sometimes change management means change the management. It's one extremely tough and difficult decision to take, but it's not that an organization can do without taking such change, making the changes in the management. It might be at any level in the organization. It's not necessarily at the decision making level. It can well be at the level of the operator, somebody who is on the front desk, who is responsible for not following the systems, who is not carrying out the change that is required, and therefore creating a mess in the system. It is therefore very important that such changes need to be carried out, need to be understood well in advance before they can carry out any major damage. And change, as I said, might sometimes mean changing the management. Whenever you have started a major project involving a change, it needs a review. And it is never a single one-shot activity. It is always over a period of time, in multiple cycles, that these changes will be implemented. One of the most common and well-known methods of doing this is known as the PDSA cycle. Some of them call it the PDCA cycle. Some of them call it the Deming wheel. There are others who would call it by different names. But essentially, the methodology of making the change remains the same. Plan the process, select the processes that you want to take up first for making the change, and look at what is the improvement opportunity. Evaluate the current processes, describe what is possible as the end result, look at what are the root causes of the problems, and finally develop an effective and workable solution with very specific targets. Having planned this, the next obvious step is to carry out the change. Implement the solution and the process changes. And then, of course, once you have implemented it, review the changes and evaluate the result of the solution. At each one of these stages, the consultant or the partner can help you enormously. He can carry out planning for you based on what you have finally decided as your requirement. He can help you with the implementation, help you at every stage in the implementation, except of course, actually carrying out the implementation. He can help you with reviewing the whole processes, evaluate the results that have taken place, and then suggest to you as to what are the next steps that can be taken. But any change must always end with reflecting on what went right, what did not go right, what is it that can be improved further, what are the other aspects that need improvement, and so on. Making a change also requires you to carry out two more very important steps, and that is to reinforce the change. That is, there are very often situations when, for the time being, you are carrying out those changes, and okay, let's work with the current methodology, the current manpower that we have, the current kind of budgets we are working on, etc., etc. But once you have seen the results of the change, you might be required to provide that additional manpower, to provide the additional budget, to provide additional space, and so on. It is necessary to reinforce those changes to make sure that nobody ever goes back to the previous steps, to the previous stage in which the process was, and therefore make the changes permanent. This itself can also take a substantial amount of effort. But this is one aspect in which the consultant or partner cannot really help you. It's for you to do these changes, to reinforce the changes and to ensure that they become permanent. With that, we come to the end of this webinar. We will go through one last webinar in this series where we look at what would be the future of business processes in healthcare. How would they be different from what we have at the moment? And what is the kind of change that you can expect and prepare for? Let me know if you like these webinars and whether there are any specific areas that you think can be addressed through these webinars. We certainly would be happy to provide you more information directly or through webinars. So do get in touch, and thank you, Neha.
Well, that's the end of our webinar. Thank you to our speakers for their time and willingness to share their information and experiences. A special thanks to all of you who participated. We're glad you could join us and hope the session was helpful for you. You will be receiving an email that will alert you to the on-demand status of today's event so that you can review any material you missed and or simply wanted to do over again. On behalf of our guest, Mr. Rajiv Tatkar, as well as the folks at 21st Century Informatics, myself, Dr. Neha, would like to wish you a good day. Thank you for joining us and taking the time to view the presentation. We look forward to see you during our next webinar, The Future of Business Process in Healthcare, on 22nd June 2015.